This
and
conference will now be recorded.
yeah, what are the differences between the ECC and HANA, and probably explore a little more on that area. So that's the intent of the course. So we don't teach you how to create basic organizational units like we do in the core ECC training, right? Okay, so let me ask you a couple of questions before we jump on ahead. What do you know about HANA, and what is that you want to get out of this course?
So if you ask me, then my understanding is HANA is more to do with, I mean, the primary difference between ECC or R3, which was like real-time three-tier architecture, and what we have right now with HANA, there is like it's more with the database, right? So which is like which was initially a row-based analysis, but now it's like more with the columnar analysis. Okay, so it's a columnar relational database system. That's what I understood from Google, and it's more faster compared to what we have like in PCC. And there are some I do not remember which tables that's been removed, but there are some uh, tables in SAP that's been made redundant. Okay, and what else? Other than that, there are a few augmentation or there are a few changes that has been made in the output scenario, like in the output configuration, like what we have as a DRF plus. Okay, credit management perspective, right? There are few things, few changes that has been made into the credit management part of it. Uh, that's about I mean, that's what I understand.
Okay, that sounds about reasonable. So you have some basic understanding of the differences between HANA. So let's take a little more deep dive into that, and maybe strengthen some of the concepts that you already know about, things like row table, row column versus row
Yeah.
columnar versus row column, and then the output and things like that. Some tables being not active anymore and things like that. So we'll learn more about that during the course of the time. So first of all, let me ask you this, why do people have to go to HANA?
It's so we have the advantage, like either we can have it as not just on-premise, but here we have on-premise, on cloud. That's the biggest advantage of it, using the HANA, and then like, which is what we call as like a hybrid platform, right? And the other one is like it's more it takes like lesser amount of time in processing, pulling out like reports, right? And yeah, these are the two things which are coming out of my mind.
Okay, so let me restate the same things, probably what you said in a different or more technical manner. So today, everywhere you see that people catch hold of smartphones and things like that. Probably 5 years ago was little less. 10 years ago, we did not have this many people, this many smartphones, right? So nowadays, every guy, there's a lot more usage of the smartphones, a lot more usage of the social media, Facebook, Twitters, things like that. So what happens with the growth of all this digital technology is that the people who interact digitally are far more increasing. It is expected that probably by end of this decade, we will have more than 5 billion people, or sorry, more than 50 billion people who will be transacting to the world through the internet scheme of things, either through your mobile or iPads or laptops or whatever you have. So everybody is on internet. So when you are on internet, so the way the consume, the way the marketing companies reach to you have changed. So when you open your Facebook, you get a lot of ads, right? When you open a browser on the web, you get a lot of ads. So the way the marketing companies are reaching out to you have changed. So we have to come digitally to you instead of the old way of things is that there is an ad in the TV, there is an ad in the newspaper, and that's about it. Or maybe they conduct some promotional campaigns here and there, and that's about the way to reach a consumer. But today it has changed. They are getting more personal in the sense they're coming to you. You get a lot of emails every day with a lot of promotions or campaigns and things like that. So these have to be done in addition to your regular marketing campaigns. So there is a lot more globalization of the data. So I mean, staying in the US, I still get about marketing campaigns that are run in India. You know, staying in India, people get marketing campaigns that are run in across the world or something happening around the world. So there is an exponential growth of the digital information, social media, mobile. Because of that, there is a lot more data to process. Everybody has a lot more data to process, and it's imperative that these companies as such, right, collect all this data. For example, you try to do a vacation search on your phone. Let's say I want to go to probably Malaysia in the next winter, and then you try to search, okay, what are all the things to search in Malaysia. Okay, after 10, 15 minutes, maybe after a day or end of the day, when you're going to bed, you open your Facebook. What are the first few things that you see? So you start to get ads about, okay, these are all the vacation hotels, these are all the hotels in Malaysia and things like that. So how is Facebook knowing that whatever that you have searched, that you are intending to go to Malaysia for a vacation? So people, I know, have to get such personalized into things. So there's a lot more data to process. So they have to understand everything that you probably connect to the internet for, process all the data, and then depending upon the need, they may want to give you the best experience as possible with regards to the advertisements or things like that. Do you agree?
Yes, really, yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I
So
got
so
you.
because of all that, there is a much more technological upgrade in the sense that, because you were running probably, in 10 years ago, you were probably running on a um, if you are running on a 1 GB hard disk drive, that would be very that you would say, oh, it's such a good computer or a good laptop. But today you have what, 21 terabyte hard disks, and that is still not enough. You have a lot more available with you, and you have Google drives, that are coming in online, cloud-based drives that are coming in and taking place of things. So why do you have to buy bigger space? Why are you going for 1 terabyte laptops nowadays? Why not you're going for a 5 gig databases? Because you have a need that there is a lot more to store in in your laptop, right? So that's the reason why you are actually upgrading yourself to buy a laptop that has a 1 terabyte space, compared to if one of your friend buys a 5 gig laptop. So what do you say to him? Hey, you've got less one, you should go for a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte things. So the world is such that we are going to expand our hard drives. So now, why are we expanding to hard drives? So that we can have more data. Whenever you go, you are taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures. So why are you collecting hundreds of pictures? If you go to a vacation, probably 20 years ago, when you go to vacation, you are just taking those Kodak cameras, taking only 20, 30 pictures on the whole vacation. But today, probably for each hour, you take 20 pictures. You store them all in your laptops, and then you probably filter them, to have the best possible experience of the trip, right? So similarly, companies also trying to expand their hardwares, expand their infrastructures so that they can capture all the possible information, they can process all that additional information, and then they give the best possible experiences back to the clients. So for that reason, the hardware has to be capable of taking more information, process that information, and give it back. And all this additional information has to be processed at a such a speed. You go to mobile, you I don't know if you have you do you have Flipkart on your mobile? If you
Yeah, yeah.
if you have a Flipkart on your mobile, what do? You just quickly browse through Flipkart and place an order on the Flipkart, right? So how many seconds does it take to actually take that and process that information and give it back to you? So it has to be speed, speed, more ability to take more data and process more data. These are the preliminary elimination elements why somebody has to go big these days. Any questions?
Got it, got it. But like, Srini, just one more question. Like, as you said, like, people, companies, uh, globally, they are moving from ECC to HANA. So is it just like for the purpose of, as we understand, like, and what you explained just now, like, the global digitization which has happened and which has been happening for all these like months. I mean, off late, that's what I can see everywhere. Like, once you get connected on Google, you are connected across all the operating systems that you have, right? So if I'm just signing up with my login ID in Google, I can use it on my Android, I can use it on my Apple phone. So I'm getting connected. So my question is from the S4 HANA perspective and also from the interview perspective. Okay, I'm just going one step ahead to understand. Um, if a question is being asked to a candidate, like why a company is so, like why a company is so very much interested to move into HANA or migrate HANA and like leave at ECC or rather keep ECC or start like doing a transition to HANA? Is it just because of the digitization or faster performance or cost optimization?
Uh, it's not like one size fits for all. That question is very generic in the sense, and the answer has to be also very you can take when you go to an interview and ask, you can probably um, take an example of any company and say, okay, you cannot be a generic there. Whatever we are giving you here is just a very general perspective. Yes and no. There are few things why. The first and foremost thing is, yes, principally to be able to process the data faster. So that's one reason. So that's one of the reason for being able to go to the S4 HANA. So for example, your systems are all built traditionally based on your infrastructure that was developed 10 years ago. Now at the time you don't have a .com orders. So now you have .com orders where you, example, you place an order in Flipkart. In the next day or two, the product comes to your door, right? So that's the speed of the delivery. So the companies are bound to deliver at that speed. So when they're bound to deliver at that speed, you have to have that capability. In order, do you invest on your existing technology? Uh, mm, and have more manpower to do that, or do you invest on new technology and have the system do majority of the job faster for us? So it's up to the company to decide. They have a challenge in front of them. These companies have a challenges in front of them. Okay, now this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. So if I want to succeed in the next 10 years, so this is where the world is moving, right? So if I want to succeed in the next 10 years, I have to be just like how you are going with HANA, right? If you want to survive in the SAP industry in the next 15 years, you have to be equipped with HANA knowledge so that you can be surviving, right? As simple as that. Similarly, the same challenge is placed to a companies as well. So if they want to survive in the industry for the next 12 years, still be able to service to the clients, still be able to service to the consumers, they have to have the capability to go to go at fast paced. So if I'm not able to order a company's product on Amazon or Flipkart, who the hell I'm going to remember about that brand, right? You know, I'll forget that brand pretty soon. I'm not going to a mall and buying. How many consumers do you have who go only to malls and buy the products? Very few. So it's the way people remember the brands are only through the frequent browsings that they do on their mobiles. So if the industries want to survive in the next 20 years, and particularly in an industry which is highly competitive, so you have to have one business edge over the others. So you can't wait for your opponent to move to have a step ahead of you in the industry. So that's about it. So it's not a one size fits for all kind of thing, but you have to be you have to answer this carefully in the same manner that principally to address your challenges, you invest in it and then move on forward.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so as I said, because of more data is being processed, more data has been received. So there is need to process that more data. So as I said, to process more data, we need higher infrastructure. And what are those infrastructure? Higher processors, higher memory, cache memory things. Cloud ability to go cloud. We have Google Drive, OneDrive. Everything is stored digitally. iCloud Drive, so everything is stored in a digital file. So have the capability to store in the cloud platform. So that's one of the reasons. So in order for companies to be able to scalable to that infrastructure, the current infrastructure is not supportive enough. For example, if you are staying in a 20-year-old building, and if you want to build a three stories to the existing building, what do you do? Do you build 3 stories to the 25-year-old building, or do you scrap that building and start from fresh again? So it's the same challenge. So I mean, when your existing buildings are not enough, that I can add more and more stuff on top of it, then what do? Um, we just scrap everything and then say, oh, okay, you know what, we'll we'll decommission this building and start a brand new house with the 4 stories, which will last for another probably 35-40 years. So that's the idea. We move on. Same thing goes in here as well. So when your existing infrastructure is not able to not able to scale to that new speed or new technology, so what do you have to do is you have to go with a higher technology. So you buy a brand new infrastructure, but when you buy a brand new infrastructure, it is up to you whether you want to start everything from scratch, or do you want to move everything what you have in your current environment into the new world as well and start making some modifications. It's like the same example. For example, as I said, when you're moving from one house to the other house, or from an existing house to a new house, so it's up to you whether you want to move your existing infrastructure like your TV, sofa sets, beds, everything onto the new house and make adjustments accordingly to match to the new house, or do you scrap everything here and buy everything fresh? So that decision you make based on how old is your used system, right?
Yeah.
So the same thing, the companies will have to make a decision when they move on to HANA. They will make a decision whether that, okay, is my existing process good enough to work for the next 20 years? Yes or no? If it is yes, then they move on with the same process. If it is no, then they said, okay, this is the right opportunity to re-engineer the wheel for that process and then have a new process installed onto the system. So you might have an existing process that's been running for the last 15 years. That doesn't mean that's the best model. You may have put in a design which is 15-year-old, and over a period of 15 years, you just sometimes made it worse, or made it better, things like that. If it is better, you take the same design and then put it in the new system. If it is bad, you then say, okay, this is bad, we'll redesign this process in the new system. So each varies depending upon how much budget you have. Let's say you have too much of budget for the company, then say, you know what, I'll scrap everything what I have. Let me start fresh so that it will go for 20 years more. But if you don't have budget, what do? Okay, let me start. If you have some budget, what do? You start picking and choosing. Okay, I'll take this one, I'll leave this one. I'll take this one, I'll leave this one. If you don't have an absolute budget at all, after having that new infrastructure, what do? Okay, so you know what, let's do one thing. We'll have everything as is in the new system as well. And then maybe as we move on, we'll make adjustments accordingly. So these are all the three possible options. But again, as I said, these things again workouts for vary from premise versus cloud applications, which we will study subsequently. But yeah, these are all the possible things that are in front, or questions that are in front of the implement clients, that they have to ask this question. So that's why SAP, what they do is they have something called preparationary cockpit. So they put forward these kind of questions to the clients, that they have a checklist, which I'll talk about in a minute. So they will go through this checklist and say, if you answer yes, 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 yes for all this, then Big Bang is the answer for you. If you say no, 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 then you may go to greenfield implementation or a brownfield implementation and things like that. Again, if you see here, SAP HANA is the core system, but it's just like an ECC, a core system, but every other add-on fields are integrated on top of your HANA, which will make the seamless integration between all those four. Like if you want to integrate Hybris or Fieldglass or Concur, Ariba, SuccessFactors, etc., etc., then you have a seamless integration. Otherwise, what happens is, if you have your ECC, it makes it's still possible, but it is not as seamless and as effective in the world. Any questions so far?
No, we don't.
Okay. So, in this figure, we're probably seeing the most important aspects of the S4HANA. It is primarily built on S4HANA is basically a database, just like how we had SAP earlier was relying on Oracle or Sybase and things like that. Now SAP has built its own database called HANA, and S4HANA only works on HANA database. So this database, unlike a traditional RDBMS, is more of a row based. Earlier, it's more of a column based. Now it's row based. Now it's more column based data. So the column-based structure would actually benefit in retrieving the data in a faster way. So that's why speed is one of the criteria for S4HANA. It also gives you some kind of some kind of real-time tools and process visualizations. For example, if you go to if you log into any bank if you log into any ICICI bank or HDFC bank, you have what we call as tiles, right? So that tiles will give you an instant information or the grabbers. So the most of the technology that HANA uses is not developed or not designed by HANA. It's how the world is moving along. So because when you log into your banks, you see probably some kind of small boxes called tiles. That's where most important information is readily available, and that information readily available is helping you to make a decision quicker, so that you don't go into details otherwise needed, right? So similarly, HANA also provides you with something called real-time decision support with these kind of tools, which will make people make decisions faster, so that we move on quickly. So what we call, when you go to, okay, let me show you a quick view of what we call this. Each box is what is I'm referring to as tiles. This is the Fiori screen, and this is where I'm referring to as called as tiles. So we can click on the tiles and get the relevant information quicker than before. Okay, and then a brand new experience is the advantage that HANA has compared to the others is that it has something called a Fiori based application, a user experience, which is not available earlier. So this Fiori based application is defined to speed up the processing times. It also goes mobile. You can have Fiori apps installed on your phone, on your iPads, so that the sales reps, whenever they go to the clients, they can actually present these and then have these orders entered quickly than before. So again, speed is the criteria there. Um, it can be deployed on premise or in the cloud, or a combination of both, depending upon the need of the company. You can either go with just cloud alone or go with on premise. I'll talk about the differences between the cloud versus on premise when it comes in subsequently, but for now, just know that SAP HANA can be actually delivered in both cloud versus on premise, or combination of both. um, And then, as you've said, we have a lot of unnecessary tables. SAP R3 is being built some years ago. So over the period of time, they've realized that there's a lot of unnecessary data. So and those redundant tables have been eliminated. What are those tables? We'll study further down. But for now, that know that a lot of unwanted data, unnecessary data tables have been removed in order to shrink the records that go into the database. Unnecessary data in the sense that you are increasing the database count. When you are increasing the database count, it may actually reduce the processing time, which will affect. So if you are reducing the footprint, for example, material master, right? Today, material master is stored in 26 table, 20 plus tables in ECC. So if you want to know storage location information, you go to table 1. You go to, for sales org information, you go to a different table. For general information, you go to a different table. For plant information, for warehouse information, for accounting information, you go to the different tables. So sometimes for the descriptions, you go to the different table. For the data alone, you go to the different table. So sometimes the same material information is stored in multiple tables. So SAP has identified that, okay, a few tables are redundant, and they have actually clubbed those multiple tables into fewer tables, so that we don't store unnecessary data into there. So when unnecessary data is not stored, the footprint onto the database tables is dramatically reduced, and thus simplifying your application. It further, it's easy to process a database that has a few records, right, rather than processing a database record that has many records. Or instead of going to 10 tables, if you're able to get what you want in 4 tables, it helps immensely in the processing of the program. Good. Are you with me so far?
Yes, yes, but like, so just one question. What are the, I'm not asking for the list of tables, but yeah, that we can find out. But then essentially, are these tables, okay, can you just let me know, like, which tables which are the tables that are being removed, in S4HANA?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
My question is, which are the tables that have been removed in S4HANA?
Okay, so you are looking for which are the tables. So for example, VBUK as an example, right? VBUK, VBUP is one example where you have VBUK and VBUP are those status tables in SAP, where if you want to know a particular status um, of a sales order or a line item, then that information is stored in those tables. So those tables have been removed completely, and instead some additional fields have been added to VBAK and VBAP itself, so that uh, you have every information that's relevant in the single order entry table rather than multiple tables.
Okay. And do you have
And similarly most importantly for the accounting data, right? For the accounting, you have earlier you used to have MBEW, sorry, MKPF and MSEG and BSEG. You know, you have accounting document header, you have accounting document item, and then gathering the information into these tables was becoming really, really difficult because there are a lot more accounting documents generated. So SAP has taken out those two tables completely and instead created a single document called AC Doca. And with that table, your BKPF and BSEC tables are completely removed and merged into a single table of AC Doca. So I just read one table instead of two tables for that purpose.
okay?
Okay, and similar changes have happened, and most of these mergers have happened in the finance area. um, mm, Most of these things have happened in the finance. A lot of those finance tables have been merged into single tables, um, so that your data is processed faster. Faster.
Even for the pricing table, I think there has been a change,
Yeah,
right? From
the KONV table, and also it has also removed the index tables. For the credit management, the SO66, SO67, the index tables such as WOPMA, VRKPA, things like that are removed. Finance tables like BSID, BSAD, BSIS. And material document tables like MKPF, MSEG are actually just like AC Docker. They have created a single table called MadDoc. And for pricing, as far as pricing is concerned, the KONV table is removed and instead PRSD elements is being used.
but do you have a complete list? Maybe we can share it later on, just for the
Yes.
knowledge. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we there is a note that comes along with implementation. I'll send you that note as well. So that note will give you a detailed explanation of what are the tables that are decommissioned and instead which note tables are sent. Okay. So Navin, how long is this session for?
I think you can plan for 1.5 hours.
Okay. Okay. So then we can go ahead. Um, So, any more questions on that so far, Abhijit?
Yeah, my name is Indrajit.
Sorry, Indrajit.
Indra.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
sorry.
no problem, no problem. Yeah, no, so that's fine. I mean, if you can share the list of those changes, I mean, those tables, that's one. And before you move into the course part of it, can you just quickly run through the topics, just to understand, what are
Okay.
the topics or contents that we will be covering.
Okay. So we'll be covering the introduction part of why S4HANA, and then we'll be talking about the innovations. What are the changes that are coming in the master data? What are the changes that are coming in the sales area, in the pricing? In the changes happening in the credit management, ATP area. Topic-wise, rebates and settlement. Topic-wise, we'll go through. Okay, what are the changes that are coming in through every single area? And then we'll also talk about some things that we can integrate through Fiori screens. And then we'll talk about some of the purchasing data changes that happen to the purchasing data in the Metal Master area, area, like Metal Masters, material types. What are the changes that happen in the info record, source list, quota management, and then impact on those output determinations and pricing as such. Of course, there are a few changes in how the inventory is evaluated. So we've those simplifications. So principally, we're talking about changes that happen in the logistics areas like sales and SD and MM, and what are the changes in every aspect in SD and MM.
Okay.
Okay. We'll talk about master data changes, like what are the changes in the middle master that are relevant for sales, that are relevant for purchasing, what are the changes in the customer master. So okay, another change is that we don't have any customer master anymore. What we call now is as a business partner.
Yes.
So there is no customer master, so we'll call it as a business partner. So what are the changes that come to the business partner? How do we have to create them? How was this used in order processing, and things like that.
Okay. What about, because I've seen again, like on Google, that there's something called CDI, Customer Vendor Integration. So, will you be covering that as well? The CVI?
Sorry, what is that?
CVI, Customer Vendor Integration.
Yeah, that's the business partner.
Oh, okay.
So that's the business partner. So earlier we used to have customer master and vendor master separately. So now what we call as we use a single business partner for customers and vendors, and we just use a link. We link these two through that CVA process. So
Okay.
yeah, when we talk about business partners, yes, I will talk about CVA as well.
Okay.
I'll show you some examples and I'll talk about those as well. Okay, so this side just it explains about the history of HANA. So when did it start? What are the different changes it has gone through? What are the transformations it has gone through? And finally, whatever we are seeing is the enhanced versions of the one that came out in 2015. For the Simplified. So every year they release a new model, 1909, 2010, etc. like that. So whatever we study, it's all 1909, which is represents the 2019, which is the version that's released in 2019 in the month of September. 2010, 2010, so which is in 2020 in the month of October. So each year they will release some upgrades, but the core functionality as they release packages in SAP, right? So the on-premise versions, they will release some kind of packages every year. So they'll keep on adding the updates. they'll keep on adding the updates to that. It started with they wanted to redesign when they started the HANA, they started with redesigning the finance aspect, and slowly they developed they've actually completely redesigned and rewritten the application in S4 HANA for the finance module, and and using and slowly they've expanded that HANA model into the other areas like SD and other core applications. So slowly they rewrote the remaining ERP applications with whatever the models that they've already built in HANA Finance. So they have rewritten those other applications like SD, MM, production planning, warehouse management, etc. Okay, so this is just a representation of how we have your HANA on premise or cloud or hybrid. When I say hybrid, it is nothing but a combination of, okay, some services you have it on premise. On premise is no different from what you have today, right? Today you have your client, you have your servers installed at the client, and that's called on premise. And cloud is where SAP will control the release of what functionalities are available. So we just and there is a very minimal configuration available for cloud applications. If it is an on-premise edition, it's like how you are doing it today. You can as well make any configuration, create your own sales organizations, create your own organizational units, process your own everything. You do configurations and web developments just like the way you do in the ECC. But if it is if it is a cloud version, then you don't have the same control. So you just use the application that's actually defined by SAP. They will give us a license, they will give us an application. I mean, it's sometimes depending upon the amount of license we buy, it's that they may have dedicated cloud for the client, or they may actually um, give one single cloud to multiple customers also. Of course, the data is not shared between customers, but the cloud space is shared between the customers. So but the data resides within the same client. So in that sense, they'll give us a license. We can log in. We can start using their order entry application, but we have very minimal control. And even the updates that happen, we are not controlling the updates to that. Whenever they have, for example, if any update comes in on premise, it is up to us whether we want to go for it or not. But for on-prem, for the cloud versions, we don't have a choice. So when the customer sends you, when the SAP releases an update in the cloud version, we just have to take it. They'll give us advance notice, and we just have to take it. It's just nothing but usage of SAP services through cloud. So it's primarily intended to capture the small scale SME segments, like a very small scale industries very small industries and customers who are probably vendors who principally will work with one or two clients, right? So for those customers, cloud is more essential. But if you have a bigger company, bigger infrastructure, more changes to that, then you probably go for on-premise. Okay. SAP has something called online trans. So SAP BW earlier has two kind of reportings. One is called OLTP and one is called OLAP. OLTP stands for online transaction processing and online analytical processing. So the difference is online transaction processing is that if you want to run a list of all sales orders for the last 1 month, right? So that's an OLTP transaction. But if you want to analyze after the reports are run, if you want to analyze okay, after the reports are run, what is the volume of the what are the last 1 month sales orders, and then if you want to drill down into further analytics, like what is the volume of X customer, who are the highest customers and things like that. If you want to attach more analytical objects to that, then that's called OLAP. So earlier, today we have in SAP, we have both of these embedded into the single transaction. Like if you run your VA05, you can actually do both of them at the same time. So with S4HANA, the OLTP was actually separated from OLAP. So that means you can, for if you want to run more analytical reports, there is a different mechanism. But if you want to run just the list of all sales orders, it's a different transaction. So this was primarily due to the what is it, the database design of how the OLTP and OLAP are actually designed. Your database, the HANA database is built for the OLTP optimization in the sense. So earlier, we had, for example, the transactions processed to BW, right? For example, you have your nightly sales orders, nightly purchase orders going into the BW data. So these are called OLTP data that's going into there. And now if you want to run for the reporting needs, where do you run all those reports? You are running in BW system, right? So that's where we call it as separations of OLTP and OLAP. So with HANA, what it gives you is this database. Now HANA database supports, it can handle both the OLTP and OLAP processing from a single data model perspective. So that's the major advantage. So you can have multiple reportings within the HANA, which is otherwise not possible in ECC. And these are some of the benefits of HANA versus your traditional database.
So just one question, Srini, going back to the previous slide regarding OLTP and that. So yes, if I'm having say a bigger volume of sales order data, right? Which when run in like BW, and that's what I've seen in my previous company. So like there is a delay by a day. Okay, so overnight the catch-up runs, and then the BW report pulls out all the data, or the sales order data, or the transactional data, and it's being published, right? And then the users they can see the report in BW. So now what is the basic difference that has been seen like in HANA when you're saying like OLAP? So if you can
We have
give me one
OLAP
example.
and OLTP together in HANA.
Oh, okay.
So earlier, what you were doing is when you're sending, you had OLTP in ECC and OLAP in BW. So that
Okay.
means OLTP is where you are sending all you're running a report of, you're running a report of all the transactions and then pushing these transactional data to BW system, right? So BW or whatever it is, separate data warehouse. Some clients have SAP BW, some clients have data warehousing tools, individual ETL tools. So any data warehousing tool, ClickView or whatever it is. So you have your transactional data, you send over this transactional data to these kind of of ETL tools, and these ETL tools are primarily designed to give your OLAP, like analytical reports. So they are designed to give you any kind of reports that you want with more analytical in nature, which are more analytical in nature. With HANA, what happens is, because your database is now capable of handling all such information, what it does is it has a combination or combined OLTP and OLAP capability. So that's why you have, this is your earlier model, where your transactional data are going into your ETL tools. Via ETL tools, you go into cubes, and then they run those reports. Whereas in SAP HANA, everything is embedded into the single environment. So your reporting,
So,
you don't need to have a separate ETL tool for reporting anymore.
so what is this? What is this ETL tool? I didn't get it.
ETL tool is some kind of data warehousing tools,
Okay.
whether it is SAP BW or homegrown data
Oh,
warehousing tool, or
okay.
where basically those are ClickView. If you have heard about ClickView,
Yes, yes. Good, good.
ClickView, or these are primarily, they just collect the data and then run some reports based on the data. They don't do any transactions. You can't create a sales order in a BW system. Similarly, you can't create a purchase order or anything like that in these data warehousing tools. They are mm, they are designed only to run some reports.
Okay.
So that's why they are called analytical processing. So they can give you any kind of reports, however you want, drill down to any level. They just are based on the numbers. That's it. So that's why these are called OLAP, online analytical processing. So earlier we had that model. For example, if you want to send the commissions, you want to know how much of commissions the sales rep has to get. Earlier what we were doing, we were sending the sales order information, we were sending the invoicing information. So these BW tools, what they do, they will try to collect, okay, what are all the invoices that are received in the last 1 month, and who are the sales reps, okay, so how much is the commission to be paid, or etc., were all calculated by the OLAP system. And then they generate a report and then saying that, hey, okay, these are all the sales reps, this is their volume of business that they have done, and this is the commission that they're eligible to get. They're kind of things. You could run those in SAP, it's not that difficult, but the problem is the speed. And do we have the same capability like a OLAP has, ECC? No, it doesn't. It has a very rigid functionalities, a very small functionality. So within the small functionality only it can work. But if you're running into those where you have 5,000 invoices a month, and if you want to look for the data, look for a particular rep across 5,000 invoices, ECC probably is not able to handle that much of volume, but a BW system can. So that's why what we do is, any kind of these historical reports we send over to the BW and ask the team to design a report. But if I want to know what is my current inventory and things like that, which are more real time, that's when we rely on ECC to generate a report. But for any historical information or after the fact information, we always send it to the data warehousing tool, whether it is BW or whatever the company has it. So with ECC HANA, with S4HANA, what happens is you have the flexibility to have all that information within the HANA itself. Any questions?
But then the process remains to be the same, right? When you're saying that the flexibility is there in the HANA system. So
Sorry?
what I'm saying is the process remains to be the same, right? So sending the data, even today, it's also the same. Like they send the transactional data to the HANA PW system, and then it pulls out a volume of data in a much more faster I mean, the performance stand is much lesser than compared to what we had before. Am I correct?
You have to maintain two different systems, right? It's not just the data alone. It's not about the ability of doing. It's about because ECC does not have that capability, or is you are relying on some other system to provide with that information. So you have to maintain two different systems. One ECC, because you have to have ECC, and then you have to maintain all those additional database, additional systems as well. Correct? So it's about a lot of other maintenance costs and things like that, to the overheads to the company.
Okay.
So with a single database and a single system, you could actually, if you can rely on single system for providing all that information, why not? It's your unnecessary headaches are done. If you are doing the same job is done in a single system compared to two different systems today, why not? I'll rather get it done in a single system. Correct? you know mm, okay, so these are some of the benefits of SAP HANA over your traditional databases. So the HANA database is actually designed to perform um, mm, okay, so on the left hand side you see how the traditional databases are designed, and on the right hand side we see how the HANA is designed. We have these traditional databases are designed to perform as long as your storage capacity is within your RAM. If your RAM, if you have a storage which is outside of the RAM, then your performance starts getting hit. Whereas HANA is designed for memory in computing. So memory in computing means what happens is that everything is stored in cache memories. So when everything is stored in cache memories or in RAM, that's why the data retrieval fast. But in ECC, you have R3 technology. R3 technology in the sense you have a database, you have an application, you have a client, you have an application layer, and you have a client level. So every time you enter something, the data has to pass through three different client server technologies to go to the database, finally get the data, process it in the application, and then present it back to the end user client. So, but whereas in RAM memory, you don't have to go to the database. The RAM itself has the data. So that's the reason why you are able to retrieve the data faster. The data models are very complex in the traditional model. Sometimes the data is very redundant, whereas those redundancies are removed in HANA. Um, um, and because of those redundancies are removed, it has less data footprint. When I say data footprint, it's the number of records that are going into stored in the database. So it's less data footprint, whereas in traditional databases, because of your redundancy, you have a high data footprint. In your traditional databases, it's all row-based databases. So whereas HANA is more column-based. So there is a difference technically in how the data is retrieved for when compared to traditional databases versus column-based storages. So because of how the raw database is designed, it's slower in transactional processing. Of course, it is not, ECC is not defined or designed for reporting purposes. It's slower reporting purposes. So and because of that, what happens is your business model is more reactive because it's not giving you all the relevant information upfront. You are more reacting. If somebody asks you a question of, hey, what happened to my code? You go into the system and give an answer to that. So you're more reactive. But with the HANA database, as I've shown in Fiori screen before, you have some tiles wherein say you can say, okay, some tile says that quotes expiring in the next 7 days. It's more proactive. So you can actually click on that quote and see, okay, these are all my quotes that are expiring in the next 7 days, and then people can take actions on it. So you are more proactive rather than reactive with all the tools that are available to help you make those decisions. Okay, so again, the applications are more simplified in HANA. For example, in ECC, you have your FI document, you have your, whenever you create an invoice, you have your FI document created, you have your controlling document created, and then there are some indices and totals that are aggregated on your FI document level, and there are some totals that are aggregated on your CO document as well, which is kind of load on the system. But in HANA, you have a single document called AC Doka, which is called what we call as a universal journal entry. And this document is used both for processing as well as analytical purposes. So the applications have been simplified a lot. Same thing goes with the material document as well. So every time a material document gets created, you have a single document which is called metadoc. And then this metadoc is used for both for processing as well as the analytical processes. Shall we stop here or do we want to continue?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, we can
I don't,
continue tomorrow.
yeah, sure. So, I don't know. So, what would be the time? Will it be the same time, or will there be any change, or what is the?
I'm okay at this time. Monday to actually Sunday to Thursday.
Okay. So
Sunday
Sunday.
to Thursday my time, which is Monday to Friday your time.
Okay. So, are you based out of US or UAE?
I'm in US.
Okay. Fair enough. So, regarding the system access and all, like any idea by when?
Naveen will help you with that.
Okay, got it. And based on today's class, the recordings, I can see that your session is being recorded. So, are we going to will the participants be able to access your recording, or
I think
yes,
so.
or yeah? Okay.
I think so.
Okay then.
Okay. Okay then. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.